They help to rescue those in danger.
Yeah, well, there's nothing down the bottom of the outboard to lift it up.
They patrol around the clock. They police the boat race and other ceremonies.
Harrods Depository, Cambridge, Wellington.
They search the rivers, canals and lakes of London and beyond for contraband and weapons. They gather intelligence and help customs drug busters. They are Thames Division, the oldest police unit in the world. The division's headquarters are at Wapping in the East End of London. They have 134 officers. Most of them are assigned to boat patrols up and down the river. PC Douglas Mills came here from Addington Division and has served with them for 10 years.
I've been boating since I was a young lad. I actually started off on the docks when I was about 9, 10 years of age. I was very fortunate in that I'd worked with Thames Division officers prior to joining the division. I'd been out and seen what they do on the river. I had a good experience of some of the work they were involved in, from towing vessels that run aground, rescuing people, these sort of things.
Police radio, Jimmy, for London Bridge out. London Bridge out.
You could have a normal day where you could literally pop up and down the river, popping in here, popping out there, popping alongside, and then you'll find all of a sudden a call comes over the radio and you're off. Blue lights are going, two tones, the adrenaline's up, the speed, bouncing around.
The crew is answering an emergency call to Greenwich, where someone has been reported in the water towing a dinghy that's broken down.
Not safe enough now, but we won't be able to get in that close because the tide's dropping now. We'll just hang off and see if we can talk to them from a distance, find out if they've been in the water. See if they might need hospital aid, perhaps, if they've been in and got cold.
We had a report that one of you was in the water swimming.
Sounds Orpington 3.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, otherwise, are you?
I don't know if you get a land unit just down to make sure that they're okay, please. For me, seems to be no problems with it at the moment, but they might have problems getting it back on the slipway.
Yeah, I'll try and do it. We've got people running about all over the place at the moment. We've got canoeists falling out all over. I'll do my best.
Yes, in that case, do you need assistance further upriver?
I'm not really sure. It's a bit confused up there. These canoeists are in the Battersea Park area. They're all falling out of the canoes all over the place. We're trying to get shore-side units to get to them. It's quite confused, apparently.
No, we'll make our way upriver then and see what we can do. Thamessphere. One of our crews is permanently tied up with a security operation, so they can't really leave their station, so we'll have to go and see what help we can give. It's not so much a problem if you're safe in midstream, it's when you come alongside these barge trots here, with more craft alongside. If you're unfortunate enough to be in line with one of those, then there's no real escape. The tide just either pins you on the front of the barge or you get swept underneath.
Every Easter, there's a canoe race from Devizes to Westminster. Last year, these canoes were among many that capsized in unexpected bad weather.
When you finally get to where you want to go to, then your pressure's really on them because you're obviously there for a situation, a bit to rescue somebody or whatever. So then all of a sudden you become no longer a fast boat driver, you become a manoeuvrer, a navigator, as it were.
In April, the water temperature can be as low as 4 degrees centigrade, enough to make even strong swimmers helpless after 2 minutes.
We are free-handed, and it is three of us that have to deal with that situation. There is no one who will be able to come to us and assist us in any way. Nobody can actually walk across water yet. I don't believe the course has been given. 10 years down here, I can honestly say now that I'm probably scratching the surface.
Not every story on the Thames ends so happily. The river's tides and currents can be fierce and have claimed many victims. Each year, Thames Division recover around 50 bodies. Identifying them used to be one of the most unpleasant duties their officers had to face.
A body, when it comes out the river, can be as much as 2.5 to 3 times inflated of its normal size. The water makes the body blow up, as it were, with gases, and it can be very hideous. Where we used to work when I first come down here, there was financial rewards, as it were, involved in collecting a body, i.e. that for cleaning body covers, for fingerprinting a dead body, searching, strip searching, etc. There was a reward insofar as you were given a gratis payment by the coroner of, I think, £15, tax-free. But this was split between 3 of you in the boat, or divided. But a lot of people were quite happy to steer away from bodies and walk away. They weren't interested. But there were some people that enjoyed, if that's the right word to use, the actual recovery, because they would go on to do the investigation side, which is very interesting.
This is dead body number 17 of last year, sighted near the Woolwich Ferry and recovered by one of the Wapping crews.
The Woolwich Ferry workshops, they'd seen the body floating in the water right outside the workshops inside the ferry pier. It looks as if it's been in the water a while. There's a discoloration and some marks on the skin. Well, you get curious, especially if it's not immediately obvious who the person is and what happened.
Finding out what happened is a job that now belongs to the Divisional Identification Officer, PC Peter Clements.
What is she? Is it a she? I think it's a she. I see 3 she.
Decomposition often changes the colour of the skin, but at this stage the body is thought to be that of a black female. If it turns out to be a routine case, identification should take no more than a week. PC Clements' first task is to look for anything suspicious.
Clothed, a round neck t-shirt, black bra, blue jeans, black tights and black knickers. I'm looking for several things. In the first instance, any signs of stab wounds or serious wounds or marks on the body which may suggest she's been murdered or put in the river against her will. At the moment, there doesn't appear to be anything at all. Right, left-hand pocket, front, 1 mortise, 2 Yale tuck keys, and a plastic fob that says, "I need a hug." That's it. Measuring stick.
6'3".
6'3" tall. She's a big girl.
Yep.
Now, can one of the pathologists either come here or meet me at the mortuary at, say, 4:30? No, it's not. It's just to pronounce life extinct on a body recovered from the river. Right, she was recovered earlier on today down by Woolwich. I've got all the clothes off her, as you can see. I've found no obvious scars or stab wounds or marks or anything like that. The 2 £10 notes, a bit of change and a small bunch of keys in the property. Apart from that, there's not a lot else.
Yeah.
She's got a penis.
She is a he.
It's a he. He's had a sex change. He's in the process of having a sex change. And that was a pseudo-hermaphrodite. Fascinating.
That is unbelievable.
Is it male or is it woman?
She shouldn't be too difficult to identify, no? As long as her friends know what he is or she is.
Well.
What would you describe her as?
Hermaphrodite.
The post-mortem confirmed that the deceased had in fact been born with male and female features and was not transsexual.
You're a star.
That's not bad for a layman, is it?
This is brilliant.
PC Clements circulated details at once. Some weeks later, Hornsey police identified the body after receiving a letter from abroad about a man living under a woman's name reported missing in their area. The inquest brought in a verdict of suicide by drowning. Thames Division started because of London's importance at one time as one of the world's busiest commercial ports. This made it a magnet for crime. In 1798, the West India Company founded a marine police at Wapping to protect their cargoes from pirates and thieves. They were incorporated into the Metropolitan Police as Thames Division in 1839. Nowadays, commercial shipping has all but disappeared, and criminals have switched from piracy to crimes such as drug smuggling.
Being rummaged by customs tomorrow afternoon. We've heard from customs and excise this morning that there's a ship due in tonight, which has come from Trinidad, previously Colombia, and they're interested in having a close look at it. High water tomorrow is at 1 p.m, and that's the best diving window that we've got at the moment.
The division is working more and more with other agencies to combat crime on the river. It's recently formed a marine intelligence team which liaises with customs to track ships from countries known for their drugs trade. Customs has no divers of its own, so they call on Thames Division's underwater search unit. The USU has 11 divers, and under safety regulations they have to field at least 5 for each operation. They help to combat the smugglers' latest tactic, bolting containers filled with drugs below the waterline for collection on arrival.
Ships in the past, they've been spotted with like big torpedoes bolted onto the bilge keel. And I think the customs have a hunch and they just ask, can we come along and check the ships out for them? What we basically do is search along the bilge keel, which is either side of the ship, the rudder and the rudder housing, for anything that might be there, especially drugs.
While customs officials search the engine room, the marine intelligence officers go topside to have everything switched off while the divers are working.
Where's the guy you talked about the...
Where's the chief engineer? He's switching everything off at 12 o'clock. Where is he? He's in his office.
Inlet and outlet, discharge valves. Have you got just a generator?
Yes, I know.
Is that all? Just one generator?
Yeah, one generator.
For the...
the switch, yeah, electric.
Which side's that on, port or starboard?
It is on the left board. Left board.
Port?
Yeah, port side.
And will that be running all the time?
Yes.
Okay. And you can't shut that? Can you shut? No? We will keep clear, yeah?
Yeah.
Top. Has the boat definitely got a bilge keel?
It's right there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he's found it. He's just found it.
So, Mr. Diver, I take it the bilge well is clear of any objects, remember?
After a difficult and dangerous search, the ship is given the all clear. But even though the ship is not involved in drug smuggling, the hope is that such operations will deter drug barons from targeting the UK.
Each ship is different. And if you could take it out the water and look at it, it'd be easy. But you've got the guy working in nil visibility, can't see a thing. And where we thought the bilge keel was originally, it was further back. So, but we got there eventually, and it's all been searched, and it's all clear.
That's a good old knot you got there, isn't it? Old Daniels couldn't have done that.
On Easter Saturday, the underwater search unit are called out to assist the CID at a brook in Dollis Hill.
Tell what it's about, lads. A week ago yesterday, the dismembered remains of a woman were found at the council waste transfer station. Cut a long story short, we searched the dump and we got back all of her body, bar the head. Now, a man walking his dog today, about lunchtime, sees the head in the water. We've come down here, we've recovered it, but what we'd like you to do is to search a bit downstream of where the head was found and then up to this weir. Yeah. And what we're looking for in particular, we're looking for perhaps the bag that we think the head was in, and also a saw, knife, possibly a power saw, and that might even include angle grinding discs.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
So, money. It's a voluntary call out. Like today, we're all a day off. We had the call at lunchtime. It's how we've mustered ourselves together, got people to look after our children, got into Wapping through the traffic. got out here, and luckily it's daylight. Usually it's during the night. So we've managed to scrape 5 of us together to form a team today. It's quite a shallow river, maximum about 2 foot, I suppose. So we're working a line across, doing a fingertip search of the bottom. The best gropers in town, basically. This is bread and butter sort of work to us, really. You get spates of murders. We might go a month without a job like this, but then you might get 2 or 3 in a month. But there's always something to do, you know. It's not always shallow water like that. We might be in the docks or the river, canals, anyway.
The unit's efforts are rewarded when they find a bag weighted with bricks. It was found to have the same batch number as other bags in the house of the victim, Mrs. Indu Bagdan Cheney. Her servant, Esaki Gopal, was arrested for her murder. At his trial, the bag was said to have contained her head. In an extraordinary verdict, the Crown accepted his plea of guilty to manslaughter because of the sexual and physical humiliation he'd suffered at her hands. He was sentenced to 4 years. The divers are often called in to search London's many canals. Here at Regent's Canal in Hackney, a boy has reported his friend has fallen in, frightened by a dog coming along the towpath. She's a 19-year-old American on a visit from the States. The USU now has the task of recovering her body.
Someone's come along and look like a Staffordshire. She's fallen in, floated out about 6 to 8 feet. So he's run off to get some help. Another member of the public's seen her, but by then, a minute later, she's floating face down and not moving at all. He's run away for a few seconds, trying to get some help. By the time he's returned, no sign of the body.
In the murky waters, the search takes nearly 3 hours.
The worst part is the search. The actual finding of the body is no hardship at all, because it's a feeling of relief once you have found it. It's a search and anticipation of finding it is the worst part of it. 95% of the time, all our searches is done in nil visibility, and it's done with touch. Any visibility is a bonus.
Just before 10 o'clock, the woman's friends are called to identify her body.
Certainly in the evening time, I find the river almost intimate. The actual night time when it's lit up is, to me, very beautiful. The other aspects, of course, follow that. In fact, it's the most dangerous time because you're then navigating in dark areas where the ambient light certainly around you can cause all sorts of havoc and play tricks with you.
Woolies Radio, Sarita.
It was on a night like this that the Thames witnessed its worst disaster this century. On every summer weekend in the 80s, anything up to 10 disco boats used to sail from piers near Westminster. Once afloat, they're free to serve alcohol outside normal licensing hours. In their heyday, they would sometimes sail until dawn. But all that was to change in 1989 with the sinking of the pleasure boat Marchioness. Among the vessels then on the river was the dredger Bow Bell. Just what happened is disputed, but some reports say that around 2 a.m. on Sunday, August the 20th, the Bow Bell passed under the centre arch of Cannon Street Railway Bridge on its way out of London. Somewhere here, or further downstream, it collided with the Marchioness. The passenger boat rolled over and sank immediately. Another vessel sounded a distress signal, and Thames Division crews at Waterloo and Wapping scrambled to their boats.
As we went under Blackfriars Bridge, you could hear screaming. Slowed down, and there were just heads bobbing up all around the river, floating towards Blackfriars Bridge. And there was people in the water screaming for help, and with 2 in the boat, you kind of, we told Scotland Yard that we had a serious emergency. And then it was a matter of going towards people, turning the engine off, running out of the boat, pulling them on board, hitting the bridge buttress, starting the engine, going to the next group of people floating towards you, stopping the engine, running out. We slowly, the two of us, filled the boat.
The thing that distressed me more than anything was the fact that I also went past a lot of people that were face down in the river. It was unfair that I should have to make a decision. I mean, I would like to have grabbed that person or those persons and yanked them into the boat and worked on them with the resuscitating equipment and everything. They deserved a chance the same as anybody else did. But unfortunately, I say I had to make a decision. I went for the people that I saw struggling in the water and that were still mobile to some degree, and I gave them preference.
Just before we hit Blackfriars Bridge, there was a large bump at the beginning of the boat, the front of the boat, and I thought it was a bit of driftwood. And it was driftwood, because it couldn't have been anything else. But when I saw all the heads in the water, I thought it was somebody, and I'd cut them in half or kill them. And for 6 months I was absolutely in shock, worrying that I'd kill somebody. And everybody that came out of that river I went and had a look at, and not one of them were injured in that way. And that was a big relief, but it took a long, long time to get over that shock.
How did you get over it?
By keeping quiet. This is the first time I've talked about it, other than to 2 other police officers.
Of the 131 passengers and crew, 51 drowned. Of the survivors, 30 were saved by their own efforts or the pleasure boat hurling them, and 50 by the officers of Thames Division.
At one stage, one of my duty boats, one of the smaller boats, had 19 people on board. It was on the point of capsize, and they were still rescuing people. I mean, the officers actually risked their own lives in undertaking this. I mean, they were being swept up against bridge buttresses to try and take people on board. The work was highly dangerous that particular morning.
But there was harsh criticism of the rescue effort. An inquiry concluded the emergency services had been poorly equipped for the job, and later inquests heard claims that the boats had been delayed by being sent in the wrong direction.
All I would say is this, that the work undertaken on that particular morning, which is a very regrettable morning, with quite a heavy loss of life, I don't think, to be quite frank, any more people could have been rescued than were rescued by this division. I think the work undertaken by my officers was absolutely magnificent. If an agency such as the RNLI, the lifeboat, actually had performed that type of rescue and rescued so many people in such a short time, then certainly gold medals would have been awarded.
So far, the only honour awarded has been 2 plaques, one at Waterloo Pier and the other at Wapping. Both were paid for by the officers' own association.
I certainly found that my domestic life suffered immensely at home, my family and children. I became a very irritable person, short-fused, bad-tempered, many things. I even started physically to go deaf and was in fact hospitalised at a later date. And although treatment was carried out, the conclusions were that it was a mystery as to what had caused the actual deafness. There was no medical problem as such, but to that point, as I say, I must admit I fell apart.
The jury at the last inquest told the press they would like to commend Thames Division for the speed and professionalism with which they reacted to the disaster. Yet at present, by a strange quirk of the statute book, neither the police nor anyone else bears a legal responsibility for rescue on the river.
From November 5, Zulu 1 is at the baggage reclaim.
Scotland Yard and Customs and Excise officers acting on a tip-off that a courier carrying heroin is due to arrive from Delhi.
From November 5, Zulu 1 is wearing a suede